Hey everyone, and welcome to the Right-Click Tools 4.5 release webinar. Today we're going to walk through everything that's new in the 4.5 release. We're going to kick things off with an introduction to each of our speakers. Then we'll jump into what's new, talk through each of the new features, including a demo of all the new features. As part of the walkthrough, we're actually going to walk through a new product that we're calling Shift Left, and we'll talk a lot more about what that's about and show a live demo of that as well. Then Emma will take us through how to get the tools, and we'll leave a bunch of time at the end for Q&A. So feel free to stick around and ask your questions then too. As far as who's talking today, my name is Chris Munster. I'm the CTO at Recast Software, and today I'm joined by Mark Godfrey. Mark is a software engineer who works on the product every day, and he's going to be taking us through some of those new features that we launched in 4.5, as well as a preview of some new stuff that's coming in the January release. We're also joined by Marty Miller. Marty's one of our customer success managers, and he's going to be keeping an eye out for any questions today. So if you do have any questions, you can use the Q&A button inside of Zoom, and we'll try to get those answered as we're going through stuff today. If you're watching this on the YouTube live stream, you can also use YouTube chat to ask your questions, and we'll try to get those answered as well. Real quick, before we dive in, we made an announcement yesterday that Recast Software was acquiring EnhancedSoft. EnhancedSoft makes a ton of incredibly useful tools around inventory and reporting for config manager admins, and we're incredibly pumped to have them on the team. Garth and his team are very well versed in all things reporting and inventory in the config manager database, and we're really excited to see where we can take things. From a support standpoint, nothing's going to change for existing customers for EnhancedSoft or Recast Software. All of the products that you are used to and know and love today are still going to be supported. So please don't have any concerns, and feel free to ask questions in the chat, or if you have any questions at the end, I'm more than happy to dive in on some of that too. Before we jump into the new features, it's important to talk a little bit about the right-click tools and what enterprise offers. So typically when people think of the right-click tools, they think of our productivity tools in terms of our client tools, client actions, and console tools. When you upgrade to enterprise, we do have a whole lot more that gets enhanced with that. So not only do you get some better versions of those productivity tools in the Remote Software Center, System Info, and Client Info tools, but we also have this enterprise ready tier that lets you customize how tools are being run in your environment and who can run those actions, right? So we have a custom permissions model, so you can scope actions, right-click tools actions to different sets of users, as well as scope them to different devices as well. So you could say that Service Desk users are only allowed to run certain actions against Windows desktops, but no actions against the Windows servers, for example. We have advanced logging functionality, so you can see who's running actions in your environment, when they're running them, and what were the results of those actions. Support for scheduling actions on the Recast management server, as well as a whole number of ways to customize where those actions get run, including support for untrusted domains, workgroup devices, or even devices that aren't on your corporate network via the Cloud Management Gateway and the Config Manager Fast Channel. We have a set of actionable reports that let you evaluate the compliance against your organization's security policies with regards to things like lapse compliance. How many devices have a lapse password? Are your lapse clients working? Are your devices encrypted? And if they are encrypted, do you have all the BitLocker keys backed up that you need to recover from a failure? As well as software update compliance and many others. And the nice thing about all the dashboards is they're all actionable. So not only do we show you the issues that are there, but we'll let you take action to try to correct them. We have our automation platform in Builder and Runner that let you customize or create custom sets of right-click tools to solve organization-specific challenges. So say you have a problem that's prevalent across a number of devices in your organization, and you have a fix documented. This lets you create that fix as a right-click tool and deliver it to your service desk, so they no longer have to go look up a wiki and do a bunch of manual steps to solve that problem. They can just solve it directly from the console. And finally, a number of kiosk management tools that let you take typically some of the higher customized devices and take the devices that take a bunch of time in customization that are usually less prevalent in the organization, and try to make some of that a little bit easier, try to lower the bar to some of that customization so you can spend your days doing a little bit more interesting tasks. All right, so now we jump into what's new in 4.5. One of the major features we're launching is the Remote Software Center. Mark's going to take us through all the details there because there's a lot of interesting stuff in that. But high level, it's all about managing and getting visibility into some of those common Windows security settings that are available in Windows 10 Enterprise builds. We're going to talk about shift left a little bit later. We're going to do a bigger intro to that in a little bit. And then we have trend dashboards. Trend dashboards are a way for us to take all of our actionable dashboards and show you history of that compliance over time. And with 4.5, we're launching with the AD cleanup tool, Bitlocker Compliance, and Labs Compliance as our trend dashboards out of the box. And we have a number of bugs fixed in 4.5 as well. And with that, Mark's going to take us through that Windows security tool.
Thank you very much for the introduction, Chris. So as Chris mentioned, we're going to demo this remote Windows security tool. Just like most of our tools, you can select it from an individual device, multiple devices, or even a collection. You just go down here in our security tools menu and you'll see the remote Windows security tool. Bitlocker status is actually rolled into this tool now with a few enhancements. We left the menu option just to avoid confusion for anyone previously using that a lot, but essentially it'll launch the tool and go right to the Bitlocker tab of it, similar to what we did when Remote Software Center was launched with the install missing software updates tool. It essentially just went to the software updates tab of that. So anyways, I'll pull this up and you'll see here we've got 7 tabs off the bat. If the original 4.5 release only has 3 of these, and then the January update should include 7, and we're also planning on adding more in the future. But let's start diving into this. You'll see the first one, Bitlocker. Similar to the Bitlocker status tool, you'll see we have the different volumes here, their protection states, encryption methods, so on and so forth. You can drill into these different items and see the different devices and some more device-specific stats on these. So let me choose the other ones more interesting. Yeah, so these like disk size, lock status, and so on. If you say select one of these devices, you can then go and use a lot of the actions we had before, like suspend, resume, decrypt, encrypt. You go over here, we've got some, these are more having to do with backing up recovery passwords, or these are forcing recovery on next restart, regenerating your recovery password. We try to make the encryption process a little easier by adding a new encryption wizard. So I'll click on this here. Depending on the volume type you've selected, or I should say volume types, because you select could select multiple. I need to click this first, of course. It'll actually check one or more of these boxes based on whether or not they're system, fixed disks, or removable disks. If you have multiples, you can always uncheck them. If, for instance, you don't want to mess with your removable disks or something. I only selected a system one, so we'll have that in there. And then based on each of those, it'll dynamically add different pages to the wizard to select your key protectors. You can select your TPM and different variations on that. If you want to enter a PIN, you can do it over here. You can select a recovery password, your encryption method here, and then whether or not you want use space only. And you click through this for all the different volume types. Again, the other ones are unique to different volumes. For instance, you won't see TPM key protectors for removable volumes. We'll hit next, and it'll show us a little summary before we actually kick off encryption, just to make sure this is exactly what we wanted. And then we click the encrypt button. It'll open our familiar little 2-grid results page and go through and encrypt them and give you a success or failure. And if it's a failure, tell you why, give you an error message. For instance, I was doing this the other day with our demo and realized that a lot of these VMs don't have virtual TPM enabled, and obviously you can't add a TPM key protector without a TPM. So I'll close that. Just like a lot of our other tools that have this familiar UI, like the system information, remote software center, client information tool, we have our little error UI down here at the bottom. So like 4 of the devices I ran this on had some issues. 3 of them had no access to them, probably because these 3 are workgroup machines and I'm not currently connected to our Recast management server that can route to there. And this one is just not online at the moment. So move on to the next one. This next one was actually based on a lot of feedback and customer requests. Everyone was like, we got our Bitlocker stuff, but TPM is kind of important to manage too, and it's a prereq, not just for Bitlocker, but for numerous other security features. So this group here, I want to explain this portion right here, the TCG version. That's based on the Trusted Computing Group specifications. A lot of you are probably familiar with your TPM versions like 1.2 versus 2.0. And that's part of the TCG spec version number. It's the first number right here. You'll see the 2.0. But then they also have various other numbers. I think this one's like a category number or something. This is a revision as well. And you can actually read based on these versions on the Trusted Computing Group website to see what new enhancements you get with each one of these revisions. It's something I've looked at possibly adding a link to in the future, and hopefully it'll be useful. You can also see is the TPM activated, enabled, owned, and ready. And if you drill down, you'll see some other stats on it, like the manufacturer version. Is it FIPS ready, locked out? And then you can select these items and run a few actions like clearing the TPM, provisioning it, or enabling auto provisioning. Keep in mind, if you're running Windows 10, these bottom two should be handled automatically. You shouldn't really need those. But for troubleshooting, we had some requests to add those in there, so they're available for you. Next is our virtualization-based security tab. I'm going to start by trying to explain this for anyone not familiar with it. So Windows 10 has a lot of virtualization-based security features. What they essentially do is kind of use a hypervisor within the OS to virtualize some of these components to make them more secure. One of these features is called Credential Guard, and what that essentially does is it prevents software from accessing the LSAS, your credential store essentially, and pulling those hashes out. So it can help prevent things like pass the hash attacks. And then there's also System Guard, also known as System Guard Secure Launch, which is it's like a form of kernel mode code integrity during the boot process. It helps protect you here, and it'll show you if VBS itself is enabled. That's essentially kind of a root thing that the rest of them need to actually function correctly. There's some settings based on the VBS enabled or not, whether or not it uses Secure Boot by itself or Secure Boot and DMA protection. DMA protection essentially includes some additional protection against attacks from direct memory access devices during that process. Credential Guard itself, and Credential Guard can be enabled with or without a UEFI lock. Essentially what that means is if you try to disable Credential Guard and you have the UEFI lock on, it needs some local access to actually do that. So it helps protect you from having that thing disabled inadvertently. And then System Guard, whether or not it's enabled or not. I do want to spell out there is a difference with these features here on this one tab between enabled and running. By enabled, it basically just means, hey, you're setting the settings for these, but they do need additional firmware prereqs for that to work. For instance, you'll need to make sure your virtualization extensions and your BIOS are on, things like that. And unfortunately, there wasn't a great way to query whether or not something's fully running directly. If you go in like MS Info 32, you can actually see whether or not something's enabled but not running, or enabled and running. We're actually looking at a way in the future to maybe get those firmware settings so we can better confirm enabled versus running. So it's something to see. This is actually enabling these features, but to actually have them fully running, check those other settings that you'll need as well. If you want to go ahead and enable these, we can click this little box here and we can enable Credential Guard or System Guard. Since virtualization-based security is required for both of those, it'll automatically enable that first for each of those. And then you can check these settings for Credential Guard or System Guard. Obviously, the UEFI lock is not relevant, so that's grayed out. And then you just enable it for one or more devices. Next, we'll go into our Windows Defender tab. Keep in mind, by Windows Defender, it's known as so many different names. Like if you see in the Configuration Manager console, if I go and select a device, you'll see down here they refer to it as endpoint protection. It's the same thing. It's essentially the same engine. And with Windows 10, the Windows Defender uses the same exact engine as what they used to call System Center endpoint protection. So it's all the same. As you can see in here, some features on is protection versus real-time protection enabled, signature version, client version, engine version. You can drill down into these devices and you can see the individual devices applied to it, signature update, last full scan and last quick scan, the scan date times. And you can even click on one or more of these and run a quick scan, run a full scan, or update the definitions for all of these devices. And then we can go into our Defender exclusions area, and this will show you all the exclusions applying to these. So you can go down and you see like the path exclusions, process exclusions. There's an extension exclusion I added in here as a test. There are a couple other exclusion types as well that we're not using here. You'll see the different machines those apply to as well. We looked into adding whether or not you can add or remove an extension, but those are actually, come to find out, protected areas. So I tried to modify these and Windows told me, you're not going to do that. So generally, if you want to add or remove custom exceptions, you're going to want, or exclusions, you're going to want to do that through policy anyways. If you go into the Windows firewall, it's looking at the different firewall profiles. If you're familiar with the Windows firewall, that breaks it down into domain, private, and public, and you can see if each of those profiles is enabled. And there are so many other different features. I basically took most of the different data points on these and added them in here. So any data you could possibly want related to the firewall is in here, like is logging configured for it? What's the max size if it's configured? And so on and so forth. And then we'll go into your firewall rules here. And you can see here, this the name of the rules, the action if it's allow versus block, the direction if it's an inbound or outbound rule, and then which profiles it applies to, whether that's public, private, domain, or some combination of 2 or 3 of those. All is obviously all 3. Is the rule enabled or disabled? And then if you drill into one of these, for instance, you'll see some other different stats on those rules as well. So this is a really exciting tool here. We've been wanting to do something like this for a while. If we do have some plans for future enhancements to make this even more robust, if you have some feedback or something you'd like to see, we would love to hear it. When I say that a lot of this is based on feedback and requests from customers, I'm not kidding. Large portions of this are from requests from you. So by all means, go to our feature request page on our website. We would love to hear feedback from you. In the meantime, I'm going to hand this back to Chris so he can continue showing some other awesome new features for you.
All right. So the next feature I'm going to talk through is related to our dashboards. And so with the 4.4, we added the ability to launch a couple of these dashboards in the Recast Management Server web UI. With 4.5, we actually added another dashboard in the web UI, and that's our Bitlocker Compliance tool. So you can see after I run the Bitlocker Compliance tool, I get this Open in Browser button. And if I click that, we can see all the same data available in the browser. So I can share this with my managers if I want to make this data available to folks. The other kind of big bit that we added with 4.5 is our trend dashboards. And the trend dashboards are really about viewing all of our compliance data over time in a historical perspective over time. And you can see we're launching with 3 main trend dashboards. We have our AD cleanup tool, our Bitlocker tool, and our Labs dashboard. And those are all kind of the 3 dashboards we launched with on the web. We are going to have software updates coming soon. It'll ship in the January release once we get that out the door. But as I come look at these trend dashboards, I can see what percentage of devices in my environment are compliant with the various policies, and what compliance means kind of differs depending on which trend dashboard I'm looking at. So for AD Active Directory cleanup, we're really looking at devices that are both in Active Directory and in Config Manager, and so compliant to me says, hey, if I click on one of these data points, how many of these devices are in this blue section, right? So you can see we have 89% compliant. The 2 that aren't compliant, we probably want to go and take a look at. Maybe since they're only in AD, we probably got to get a Config Manager client deployed, run Active Directory system discovery, that kind of thing. For Bitlocker compliance, it gets a little bit more complicated because compliance here changes depending on how you've configured your environment. If you have MBAM or if you have CM Bitlocker management, we're going to rely on the compliance data point from the respective databases. So if you have either of those configured, we're going to look at and see how many of those devices are compliant with those policies. And really what I'm talking about is this right pie chart as I click into the data point. So you can see we have 50% of our environment is in the unknown state, and 47% are compliant with both MBAM and Bitlocker, CM Bitlocker management policies. So for our environment, we're looking at this right pie chart. If you only have, or if you have neither of those configured, if you're only using Active Directory to look up keys, we're going to rely on this left pie chart. And specifically, we're going to see how many devices have a Bitlocker key in Active Directory here. So this compliance chart gets a little bit more complicated. It's same with Labs. So Labs compliance for us means how many of your devices, number one, have a Labs password on this left pie chart, but also how many of those devices have a Labs client configured according to Config Manager's hardware inventory data. So, in our case, we have 4 devices that don't have a Labs password. Those same 4 devices don't have a Labs client, so it kind of makes sense. And we're at 70% compliance because of that. If you want to set these up, you can come into the web dashboards, and you can choose which collections, which OUs you're interested in here, and then you could run it to see, make sure it's returning the data you want, and then you can click the trend button to create a trend. And this name you give it is going to be what name shows up in the dashboard itself. So if I come in here, notice we have this name up here. I can give it a different name here, and we'll actually show multiple trends at the same time as the data comes in. So I'm going to say Recast Workstations, have it run every Saturday at 1 a.m. And you could choose a repeat interval too. So 1 to 4 weeks. If I hit create, we're not going to get any new data right away, because we have to wait for that trend evaluation to kick off. So Saturday at 1 a.m. we should see a new data point on this chart, and every Saturday after that we'll get more and more data points. So that's the trend dashboards. I think we're going to pop back into the slide deck real quick and talk a little bit about Shift Left. So Shift Left is a new product that we're launching for ServiceNow, and it really came out of the idea of making more, giving your service desk more actionable items to take right from the incident form. Over the years, we've gotten a number of questions or suggestions that telling us that we should make our right-click tools are great, but it would be nice if the help desk could access those without popping into the config manager console. Right? Maybe the environments don't want to delegate permissions to config manager for those users, even restricting those permissions. Or it might be a training issue for your service desk where they don't necessarily want to go and learn how to access yet another console. Our kind of solution for that was to follow a similar model that we took with the right-click tools for config manager. Right? The right-click tools are all about providing context-specific actions in places that are useful for config manager admins. And so with Shift Left, we're trying to do the same thing, provide context-specific actions where the service desk lives. And when we were looking at kind of the environment, we decided ServiceNow is probably the best place to start there. And so with Shift Left, we've added a couple of buttons to the ServiceNow incident form. So here I'm jumping into ServiceNow, and I'm on the incident view for a particular incident. And we've added our actions in 2 spots here. So up here at the top, we have this caller field, which is basically who submitted our incident. And if I click that recast button here, I get a number of bits of data about that user up here at the top. And this is data coming from ServiceNow, might be coming from Active Directory, et cetera. And then I get actions against that user down here at the bottom. Right? So I can query Config Manager for a list of logged in devices for that user. This is essentially the same as running our user devices tool in the Config Manager right-click tools. I can reset that user's password, right, and have it force them to change it at next launch, or even unlock the account if it's locked. Or I could just initiate an unlock account action right from here. Right. So again, it's just providing user-specific actions in the place that we're interested in them there. We can also take action on the device, or configuration item in ServiceNow parlance here. As I bring up the device actions, I can see, again, I have a bunch of information at the top that's pulling data in much the same way that the system information tool pulls in from the right-click tools, right? So I can see things like pending restart and what's the OS version, who's logged into it right now, last boot up time, machine model, et cetera. And then I can take action down here at the bottom. So I can pull the Bitlocker keys from Active Directory. We can grab a list of deployed applications, similar to the remote software center inside the right-click tools. We can perform group policy updates for both machine and user policy, pull the lapse password from Active Directory, grab a list of who's logged in right now and how long they've been logged in, ping the device, or kick off a shutdown or restart. So, quite a few actions there. We're really excited about this, and we'd love to have feedback on what you'd like to see and how this could be useful in your environment, how we can make this thing better. We did the walkthrough. I'm going to hand this back to Emma, and she's going to take us through how you can get the 4.5 release.
All right, thanks, Chris. Thanks, Mark. So first I'm going to, before we move into questions, I'm going to share with you how to get ServiceNow if you're interested in a trial. I just sent the link to get to the website into the chat. And this will be what it looks like. And if you come to this website, you can request a trial and you can learn a lot more about it. So that's how you get there. I also know that we were talking about requesting features, we were talking about resources. So if you do go to our website, you can check out our resources panel and it'll have all things from like our blog to our documentation. And in regards to what they were just talking about, if you would like to submit a request formally, you can go to our features request page, submit your own, comment on others. It's a really helpful tool. So if you wanted a more personal overview of this, you can always come to our contact page and get a features overview. We love talking about it. So, you can contact us whenever you want. If you liked it today, if you wanted to dive on into enterprise, you can come to the same page on contact or pricing, and you can come in here and request a price check there. And so now, since that's about it, I'm going to go ahead and pass it back over to Marty, and he can go ahead and let you guys ask some questions.
Awesome. Thanks, Emma. Hey, everybody, it's Marty. I am the Customer Success Manager here at Recast and would love to answer questions about the product that you might have. And so you can go ahead and type those on the Q&A button at the bottom of your Zoom window, or if it's up at the top, do it at the top of the Zoom window, wherever it is. There were a couple of questions that came out as Chris was looking at the shift left in ServiceNow. And there were a couple of questions about, hey, can we do this other places? Is it only in shift left, right? Or is shift left only in ServiceNow right now? And that is a great thing to go ahead. Right now, it does only exist for ServiceNow. If you are interested in seeing it other places, that's a great thing to put on a feature request page in where Emma was showing those feature requests. We would absolutely love to hear where you'd like to have it. And where you'd like to see it, because we're excited about the opportunities. So, definitely something that we would love to make available and make it so that more people can use it. Yeah, so go ahead and you can then go ahead and leave any questions that you might have in that Q&A button, and we will answer it to the best of our abilities. There is a question that just came in through chat. Actually, it said, can you point me in the right direction as how to set up proxy accounts, why you would want to use them, or videos as well. On our website at docs.recastsoftware.com is our documentation page. And if you go to the Recast management server part of that page, it will actually kind of describes all the pieces of what works with the Recast management server. And the proxy accounts would be part of that. So it can actually show you some of the things you can do with proxy accounts, why you would need them. So that exists there. We also do have videos as well as some blog posts also on our webpage. So it's another great place. If you look up the Recast software blog, that's another place where we have videos and how-tos on how to do those kinds of things. And there's a lot of great information about setting those accounts up, and as well as what things can you do with them. Do you have any pricing info for shift left in ServiceNow? Somebody certainly does, and the way you would get connected to those people is if you go to our website. On the front page, I believe there's a request a quote button that you could click on, and that will get you to the people who know exactly the information that you are looking for. And they're very, very nice about it. If you tell them, oh, okay, thanks, now that I know I'm not interested, they'll totally understand and not pester you and bug you. So you don't have to be afraid asking them what it actually costs. So you could go ahead and do that. That is right on the front page of our website at the request a quote button. What is the licensing model for right-click tools? Is there a perpetual model that covers future releases, or it is a one-time purchase for each release? So I can answer kind of from the 1,000-foot level on this, is that the licensing model, basically it's a year license that would cover any of the releases that we have during that time. So there isn't like, you're not licensed for a specific version or anything like that. You are licensed for any of the versions that are released during the time that you have the license. Again, if you want more information about specific pricing and how everything works from that end, I would go ahead on our front page again and click on the request a quote button, because they're very good about getting back to you with the exact information that you're looking for, basically. any possibility of showing the history of the last certain number of PCs excess. This way we wouldn't have to retype computer names repeatedly. So maybe there's always a possibility, right? This is one of those things that I would also say, go ahead and if you're thinking for feature requests, this would be something that you could absolutely put on that feature request page. While we have just a couple of seconds, we do actually go through those feature requests on a regular interval with the dev team and go, oh yeah, here are some things that we actually want to do. Here are some things that we absolutely don't want to do. And here are some things that we'll do when we have time, kind of thing. So we will absolutely look at it and kind of give it an if we can do it kind of thing. And then as people vote on those, you can actually go in and vote on things that you would also like to see, maybe of other feature requests, kind of like user voice for Microsoft. And that way, if other people want to do it too, we kind of look at it and go, oh, quite a few people are interested in this one. Maybe we should make that happen. So definitely something that would be good for a feature request. Since we have huge amounts of AD groups, is there a custom filtering option? Maybe certain OUs that you don't want to have scanned at all. That might be something that would also be good for a feature request.
Marty,
yeah, go ahead.
Sorry to interrupt. I was wondering if that was actually asking in regards to the trend dashboards, in which case we set up like I think our demos we're using like all systems, but you can set up your own snapshots, intervals, and then which group you want, so that they can just snapshot particular sets of devices. I don't remember. Chris did most of the work on that. I don't remember if it's all based on collections or if you can do AD groups for that, but it doesn't have to be all systems if that's what the question was asking.
Yeah,
right.
and there's even more filtering you can do. Like if you're looking at Recast Management Server, you can start thinking about scopes too. Like if you could just scope users to specific OUs, and that would automatically filter that OU dropdown to that you have permission to see according to the Recast scopes.
All right. We did have a mention also, as far as the request page, if there are dashboard or reports maybe that you are interested in seeing, that you're like, man, I wish I had this dashboard so I could, this would be the most important information for my organization, or maybe it's just some information that might be interesting. Absolutely go ahead and submit those on our feature request page as well. Kind of the idea is we like to know what ideas people have, and make sure that others can vote on them, and then we can take a look and decide what to do as well. One other thing that I did want to mention, if you are having, one of the things that I do as the customer success manager is customer support. So I've talked to many of you possibly about different support issues. If there are issues that you're having with the right-click tools, absolutely feel free to check us out on the support part of our website. You can chat with us in real time when we're not on webinars. You can also submit us a ticket that'll make sure we get a ticket assigned to us that we can help you with, or we can even set up a time to do a meeting over Zoom to go ahead and help with any issues that you're seeing as well. With that, I will go ahead and hand it back over to Emma.
Okay, thank you guys for all of your questions and for sticking through this with us. As Marty said, if you have any questions or concerns, please contact us, and we will not hesitate to return your contact request. So if that's it, I guess I'll go ahead and say thank you guys for coming, and we hope to see you soon.